John Cleese, Michael Palin, Kevin Kline, Jamie Lee Curtis, some diamonds and a red herring.
Hello, Wanda.
In 20 minutes on BBC One.
Vic and Bob continue to relax at home on BBC Two, where they're seeing Shooting Stars, a special celebrity quiz. On BBC One now, the news with Chris Lowe.
There's widespread concern about the birth of twins to a 59-year-old British woman. She was treated in Italy, but they were born here, and some experts say she's much too old to be a mother. The IRA's Christmas ceasefire is over. Terrorists attack a police station in County Tyrone. All the Russian kidnappers have been recaptured, and most of the ransom money too. Good evening. The Health Secretary, Virginia Bottomley, and senior doctors have expressed concern at the case of a 59-year-old British woman who has given birth to twins after artificial impregnation. The procedure was carried out in Italy after the woman, who can't be identified for legal reasons, was refused treatment in Britain on ethical grounds. Mrs. Bottomley said no woman had an automatic right to have children, and the needs of the child must come first.
When British doctors refused to treat the 59-year-old woman, she turned to Italian specialist Dr. Severino Antinori. He claims to have successfully treated many women over the age of 50 at his clinic in Rome. In the case of the British couple, sperm from the woman's 45-year-old husband was used to fertilise an egg donated by a woman in her 20s. The government has supported the decision by a British ethical committee to turn down the couple's request for treatment in this country.
The techniques offer serious ethical considerations. That's why we introduce the legislation, so there are statutory controls. And we do also have to have regard to the welfare of the child. For those reasons, I think she was turned down in this country.
Since the technology became available in the 1980s, many older women have sought help from Professor Ian Kraft at his London fertility clinic.
I don't think necessarily, though, if the children did result from someone delivering children at that age, that they wouldn't be really loved by their parents, wouldn't be brought up perfectly normally, couldn't have a normal development. I think we can't make those conclusions. It's just, I think, society feels antagonistic to it for reasons that it's out with nature. Nature doesn't normally allow that to occur, so why would you wish it to?
Josefina Maganuca gave birth to her first daughter in Italy when she was 55. She and her husband Angelo claim they're living proof that elderly parents can cope with tiny babies. But some doctors fear that Britain's oldest mother of twins may be storing up problems for the future.
The teenage years are also of paramount importance to be able to discuss issues with your parents and to be able to carry them through. And if the parents are of a wholly foreign generation, it's really like discussing these issues with your grandparents. Interesting, but hardly relevant to you.
Britain hopes to persuade other European countries to follow its ethical lead. If they succeed, couples like the Maganucas will be robbed of a chance to experience parenthood. Juliet Bremner, BBC News.
There's been widespread condemnation of last night's mortar bomb attack in Northern Ireland. It happened only minutes after the IRA's Christmas ceasefire expired. 2 people were slightly injured in the attack on a police station in Fintona, County Tyrone. The local Democratic Unionist MP said it shows the IRA have no peaceful intentions.
The mortar bomb was fired into the compound of the police station at Fintona just 16 minutes after the IRA's 3-day ceasefire ended at midnight. The RUC base, staffed part-time, was empty. A man and a woman were slightly hurt, and at least 20 houses, shops and business premises were damaged when the bomb exploded without any warning.
We were watching a film on television, and I heard a slight thud first, and then there was an awful bang, and the windows blew in around us, and all the stuff came down the chimney, and I had a young lad sitting on the couch, and the window came around him, and his arm was bleeding.
The bombing has been condemned by the province's 4 constitutional parties. The local MP says it wasn't unexpected.
Once again, we see the reality of the peace that the IRA has for the people of Northern Ireland. They had no intention of giving the people of Northern Ireland peace. All that the British government has done is once again continued the policy of surrender and appease the terrorists.
A local bishop says the IRA is saying it will decide when to end its violence.
It seems to me to have been an attack on democracy and on the community at large. Thankfully, there wasn't anybody in the police station. As far as the houses all round it, very close-knit community here, it seems to be absolute and total lack of caring just for human beings.
The attack shows the IRA intends to continue its campaign, while the Republican movement takes more time to consider its response to the Downing Street Declaration. Noreen Erskine, BBC News, Belfast.
And some news just in. A gunman has opened fire on a Territorial Army centre in Portadown tonight. The shots were fired from a passing car. They hit a lookout post, but nobody was hurt. Another 3 young children have been found left alone at home after police forced their way into a house in Wolverhampton. 2 boys, aged 5 and 4, and their 2-year-old sister are now being cared for by foster parents.
The 3 children were found alone in a flat in the Heathdown area of Wolverhampton after the police received an anonymous phone call. Neighbours today claim that the children, 2 boys and a girl, are frequently left by their father on their own. The police have described the conditions inside the maisonette as appalling.
The bedclothes were soiled. There was a cot in there that was badly soiled. The little girl was wearing a nappy and that needed changing.
And no food available?
There was no food at all in the flat.
The children were given a medical examination this afternoon. So far this Christmas, a total of 12 children around the country have been taken into care. Social services say there's nothing unusual about these cases.
I started my career in 1963 as a childcare officer in Birmingham, and it was a fairly regular occurrence back in the 60s. Obviously, it's the sort of thing which hits the public consciousness at Christmas time.
The children's father will be interviewed tomorrow morning. The police report is expected to be sent to the Crown Prosecution Service. This is Peter Wilson for BBC News in Wolverhampton.
In Russia, the gunmen who escaped after kidnapping a group of schoolchildren have been captured, and most of the $10 million ransom money has been recovered. The kidnappers abandoned their hijacked helicopter near Makhachkala in the southern Republic of Dagestan.
When the gang's helicopter finally landed in the town of Makhachkala, police discovered that the kidnappers had already got off it and fled on foot. Russian security forces then set up checkpoints all around the city, stopping and searching every car. Within a few hours, they'd captured all 4 of the kidnappers, 2 of them after a brief gun battle. This is the gang's ringleader, a middle-aged man nicknamed Murat, previously convicted of drugs offences and armed robbery. His accomplices were a navigator thrown out of the Air Force for heavy drinking and 2 students. All could now face the death penalty. Most of the $10 million ransom paid to the kidnappers has now been recovered. According to the gang's leader, they threw some of the money out of the helicopter, apparently to deter any attempt to shoot down the aircraft. For the kidnapped school children, now back with their parents after being seized at gunpoint, it will take some time to get over this ordeal. The hostage drama has shocked the whole of Russia, a country increasingly beset by violent crime. Tonight, President Yeltsin thanked all those involved in ending this crisis, and the Russian authorities must be quietly relieved that after taking the controversial step of paying the ransom demands, they not only saved the hostages' lives, they also retrieved most of the money and arrested the gang. Ben Brown, BBC News, Moscow.
The Israeli Foreign Minister Shimon Peres and the PLO have opened a new round of talks in Cairo in an attempt to end the deadlock in the Middle East peace process. Israel was supposed to withdraw its troops from Gaza and Jericho by December the 13th, but the 2 sides have so far failed to agree on a number of security issues. From Cairo, our Foreign Affairs editor John Simpson reports.
Cairo, amid its outward calm, is a troubled city at present, though the Egyptian government, despite its problems, is trying hard to facilitate the agreement between Israel and the Palestinians. Not an easy task, despite the earlier optimism. Shimon Peres, more than anyone else, is the architect of that agreement, and when he came here today, he was trying to balance the tough talking he's been doing back home about the need for the Palestinians to make the big concessions with some careful reassurance here.
the chairman of the PLO says that he expects us, hopes that we shall respect the dignity of the Palestinian side, yes. We intend to do so clearly, fully, considerably.
But Yasser Arafat, who was here yesterday to talk to the Egyptian president, Mr. Mubarak, but didn't stay to meet Mr. Perez, is looking increasingly vulnerable after the defection of some of his senior lieutenants yesterday while these pictures were being filmed. And many Palestinians are wondering today whether the Israelis are now thinking of ditching Mr. Arafat and looking for an agreement with the fundamentalists of the Hamas movement. Still, fundamentalism is the biggest challenge both here and in Israel. This tourist bus was attacked by fundamentalist gunmen in Cairo this morning, and 8 Austrians and 7 Egyptians were injured. Tonight, in this slightly ominous atmosphere, the Palestinian-Israeli talks have been going on for more than 4 hours in secret, and the earlier optimism does seem to be fading a little. And as a reminder of the growing strength of fundamentalism, we're just getting reports that 3 Egyptian Christians have been murdered this evening in the city. John Simpson, BBC News, Cairo.
The Norwegian government has protested to Israel after one of its soldiers was killed while serving with the United Nations in South Lebanon. The 21-year-old died and another Norwegian was wounded when Israeli tanks opened fire on a United Nations patrol. The Israelis say their forces mistook the UN soldiers for a group of Arab guerrillas. They've apologized and begun an inquiry. Here there's been a rush to the sales in many parts of the country, with some retailers reporting business 3 times busier than last year. Travel agents have also joined in the battle to persuade consumers to part with their cash by offering discounts for early bookings.
Bargain hunters came out in force in central London to spend money left over from the busy pre-Christmas shopping spree. People even had to queue at some shops, a happy reminder for traders of the good years before the recession. Clothing, furniture and china were selling briskly, some of the caution of recent years abandoned.
I'm sick of being broke, so I'm spending as much money as I can.
Retailers hope the spending surge signals the revival of consumer confidence.
The past 12 months have seen fairly steady recovery, certainly against the really grim days of 1991 and 92. But it's important that that recovery continues into 94, because if we don't have continuing consumer recovery, I think that the overall economic recovery is going to very quickly run out.
But retailers fear that when the tax increases of recent budgets begin to bite in the spring, the recession might return to the high streets. Today, though, across the country, few shoppers were thinking that far ahead. In Scottish cities, there were traffic jams and crowded pavements as shoppers searched for bargains. Competing with the department stores today, the travel industry launched a price war. Discounts of up to 11% were offered on summer holidays, and the result was, according to one firm, record trading. Next summer, 9 million people are expected to holiday abroad. Michael Vesti, BBC News.
Now, the Boxing Day sport. No game today for the Premiership leaders Manchester United, so a chance for the chasing pack to make some headway. Here's Rob Bonnet with the day's news.
A Kevin Campbell hat-trick was the highlight of today's football as Arsenal won 4-0 at Swindon. Elsewhere, there were further problems for Chelsea. They lost at fellow strugglers Southampton.
Arsenal began the season as the team regarded as the most likely to prize the championship away from Manchester United. Goal-scoring, though, has been a major problem, but not today. Kevin Campbell, set up by Ian Wright, scored their first at Swindon after 19 minutes. Swindon might have moved off the bottom of the Premiership for the first time this season with a victory, but that was simply never on. Campbell's second goal came before half-time, and then, after 68 minutes, Ray Parlour's right-wing cross set up his second hat-trick of the season. Still, though, Campbell's striking partner Ian Wright stole the show. His 35-yard chip over Fraser Digby completed the scoring in the last minute. At the bottom, Chelsea's woes continue after another defeat, their 9th in the last 11 matches. Today, fellow strugglers Southampton went ahead after 29 minutes, courtesy of Tommy Widrington's first goal for the club. Mark Stein equalised before half-time, but Chelsea's defensive frailties remain, as Ian Dowie and then substitute Frankie Bennett condemned them to another defeat. Chelsea have now taken just 2 points out of the last 33. Oldham are another struggling team. They lost at QPR today. Gary Penrice scored the second goal in a 2-0 victory for the London club. Duncan Jones, BBC News.
So while a look at the table still shows Manchester United's lead over Leeds as 13 points, Arsenal are 16 off the top. Norwich won 3-1 at Tottenham today and along with QPR are 19 behind. At the bottom, Southampton exchanged places with Chelsea, who are now only 1 point above Swindon. Sheffield United didn't play today. There's still no resolution to the struggle for boardroom control at Everton. Bill Kenwright, the leader of one of two consortiums bidding for the club, is competing with a group headed by Tranmere Rovers chairman Peter Johnson. The directors met before tonight's match with Sheffield Wednesday, but have so far failed to announce agreement. And on the pitch, further problems. Wednesday led 2-0 at half-time, their second goal an extraordinary header from England international Carlton Palmer. In the First Division, 2 goals from Chris Armstrong helped Crystal Palace to victory this afternoon at Oxford, whilst a 90th minute equaliser from Leicester's Ian Ormondroyd produced a 4-4 draw against Watford. So Palace's lead is now 2 points over Tranmere, who only drew with Wolves. Millwall also drew at home to Portsmouth, and Charlton lost 4-2 at Southend, where 3 players were sent off in the last 9 minutes. The race for the Premier Division title in Scotland remains tight, and Ian Jesgold provided Aberdeen with only their second away win of the season at Dundee United, while John Robertson's last-minute equaliser for Hearts deprived Rangers of both points at Ibrox. So Aberdeen lead the table by just 1 point from Rangers. Motherwell's match with Celtic was postponed. Hibernian beat Partick Thistle 5-1. The second favourite, Barton Bank, was the impressive winner of the King George VI Triple Print Chase at Kempton Park. But the first 2 jockeys, Adrian Maguire and Declan Murphy, have been banned for 2 days for unreasonable use of the whip. The race's most celebrated former winner, Desert Orchid, led the parade of runners. Now 14 years old, Desi lives in retirement on a stud farm in Leicestershire. The race itself produced a thrilling finish. Barton Bank and the country's leading jockey Adrian Maguire led throughout to hold off a determined challenge from Bradbury Star and Declan Murphy. The commentator is Peter Bromley.
1 to jump, Bradbury Star and Barton Bank together. The fellow are close up third, but Barton Bank is stronger. Barton Bank is going to hold Bradbury Star, but it's Barton Bank that wins it from Bradbury Star.
Barton Bank's victory was Adrian Maguire's 100th of the season. Bradbury Star was a close second, with the favourite, the fellow, third. The England A cricket team are in a commanding position after day 2 of their tour match against Western Province in Cape Town. Northamptonshire's Malachi Loy and Adrian Dale of Glamorgan shared a century 5th wicket stand as England built a substantial first innings lead. They were eventually all out for 321 in their first innings, a lead over South Africa's domestic champions of 144. And if England A win that game, it'll be 8 out of 8 on the tour. Chris.
And that's all from the BBC Newsroom tonight. Good night.
Good evening. The condition of a thalidomide victim from Liverpool who's 3 days into a hunger strike has deteriorated. He claims a compensation fund controlled by Guinness, which owns the drug's manufacturer Distillers, is inadequate. Freddie Asprey is campaigning for a fresh inquiry into compensation paid to victims. Inadequate, he says, because they're living longer than expected. Speaking before his condition worsened, he said he was calling on the Queen for help.
I've said to the Queen that because thalidomide is still being made in this country and supplied to third world countries, which is allowing deformities of babies still to be born, I'm asking it to take away the royal approval from Guinness.
A man has died after dousing himself in petrol and setting it alight outside his mother's home in Cheshire. 41-year-old Alan Mackenzie, who is married and came from Prestbury, Greater Manchester, suffered over 60% burns after the incident in Boleyn Park in Wilmslow. 2 groups bidding to take over Everton Football Club have been asked for further details of their proposals. One of the groups is led by Bill Kenwright, director at Goodison Park. He's competing against a rival bid by the Tranmere chairman Peter Johnson. At a board meeting before tonight's game, the bids were returned, with Everton's directors asking for more information. And still with football, in the FA Carling Premiership, Everton are playing Sheffield Wednesday at home. The latest score, Everton 0, Sheffield Wednesday 2. In Division 1, Tranmere had to settle for a 1-1 draw against Wolves. Bolton drew 0-0 at home to Sunderland. In Division 2, Burnley beat Wrexham 2-1, and the game between Blackpool and Stockport was postponed. Well, that's all from us this Boxing Day evening. We'll be back at just after 7 o'clock tomorrow morning with the national weather. Here's Penny Tranter, and from all of us, good night.
Good evening. A marked change in the weather during tonight and again tomorrow as milder and more unsettled weather starts to come in from the west. But today was cold once again, temperatures around 1 to 5 degrees, around 0 in parts of Scotland. Tomorrow will be a raw day over many eastern areas, but much milder weather coming into the extreme west, and that will flow across many other areas during Wednesday and again on Thursday. The reason is going to be brought about by this Atlantic frontal system steaming in from the west at the current time, already bringing some quite heavy rain to parts of Ireland. And that's going to continue to make eastward progress during the course of tonight into many western areas, but turning to sleet and snow over many eastern areas, particularly over high ground. And coupled with a frost, temperatures around 0 to -1, we will see atrocious driving conditions. Further southwest, we will see milder weather, temperatures around 3 to 5 degrees by tomorrow morning with outbreaks of rain. Tomorrow, a very windy day with that front pushing relentlessly eastwards. It will still give us sleet and snow in many eastern areas during the morning and some rain in the west, but over Northern Ireland becoming brighter with some sunshine and also some showers. That pushing into many parts of Western England and Wales during the afternoon. And further east, we'll see that sleet and snow turning more and more to rain as we go through into the afternoon, but it will be a very windy day, particularly in the east, and we will have a raw feel to the day, temperatures around 1 to 3 degrees here. But further west, we'll see those temperatures rising or up to around 4 to 7 degrees by the end of the day. On Wednesday, a very windy day indeed, strong winds from the southwest, and this frontal system will bring outbreaks of rain. That rain will spread quite quickly eastwards during the day after a dry and bright start in the east. And then we'll see sunshine and showers coming into many western areas, but have a look at those temperatures, up to around 5 in the north, 9 in the south. And on Thursday and Friday, we'll see a mixture of sunshine and showers right across the country, the heaviest of the showers in the west and the north, and temperatures around 4 to 9. And that's it.
Tomorrow on BBC One, Carrot's Commercial Breakdown. 50 minutes of the very best TV ads from around the world, with bits of carrot in between.
In 10 minutes on BBC Two, Vic and Bob introduce Mike Leigh's delectable comedy with Roger Sloman and Alison Steadman on a camping holiday, Nuts in May. George Michael tops the bill here on BBC One tonight with Mick Hucknall and KD Lang in a special concert of hope, recorded on World AIDS Day. And that's after our comedy movie now. A worldwide hit for John Cleese, Jamie Lee Curtis, Kevin Kline, Michael Palin, and a fish called Wanda.